This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malanoff. With me, as always, is Mark Souza. We got some things to talk about on the Tuesday today. For sports, we got some basketball, we got some football, we even got some NHL for you. So let's just dive right into it. NBA first. I think that's got to be the main topic conversation so far. But we had some buzzer beaters, we had some non-calls that affected most games, and we had records broken. Which one do you want to tackle first, Mark?
I think we should talk about the Russell Westbrook record
and
the Thunder versus Blazers, which is a big game in the Western Conference.
Okay, then. Yes, Russell Westbrook has had his 10th straight triple-double, which he passes Wilt Chamberlain for that record, which is a huge accomplishment, passing a legend like Wilt Chamberlain and what he has done in the NBA. So that is incredible for him. His triple-double came from a three from Paul George, which I think is appropriate because how good Paul George has been playing right now. And Russell Westbrook, and the crowd went wild as soon as George hit that three because they knew the record was set. And I don't think this is going to be broken for a while. And I think it's going to continue. It's not just going to be 10 games. What do you think?
Yeah, very possible. I don't know how you mentioned this record might be set for a long time. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Today's NBA, a lot of today's NBA, the triple-double is very prominent, very relevant more today than it has been. I mean, it wasn't even the only triple-double in this game. Paul George had triple-double as well.
Yeah. Paul George, for his sake, I think he's more of an MVP candidate than Russell Westbrook, obviously, because of, he's been playing. But it's honestly his stat sheets kind of looked underneath due to the historical one that Russell Westbrook did, which is understandable. But, man, them both together, something magic's happening in Oklahoma City, and they could make a run here. I think people are really not looking at them as a serious contender, but because of the Warriors and all the other teams going in the Western Conference.
All these conversations end in, there's the Warriors in the Western Conference,
Well,
right?
That's always what is going to happen, but I'm like, I think the Thunder, I know it's like, they only have 2 guys and Warriors have 5 and all that good stuff, but I don't know. I'm not going to underestimate the Thunder when it comes to playoff time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the point that I made the last time we talked about this team yesterday, is that in the West, they might be the second best team. I mean, it's certainly possible, even though they basically have 2 guys. I mean, even if you throw in like Steven Adams, 3 guys, but still. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to go through Golden State. And I can't see it happening. I mean, obviously, most people would not, but what they're doing right now is awesome. I mean, they're 37-19. And as good as Russell Westbrook was, or has been, all the players on the Blazers only want to talk about Paul George. Paul George right now might be the MVP in the NBA. Damian Lillard even said that guy's the MVP after the game regarding Paul George.
His triple-double had 47 points to it. I think that's
47, 12, and 10.
Yeah,
and he's averaging 39 points per game in February.
That is absurd. That is
He is – we talked yesterday about possible MVPs. We obviously talked about Giannis. We talked about Jokic. We talked about Paul George, Harden. Maybe Paul George is at number 1 right now. It's him or Giannis probably today, but this changes daily pretty much, right?
Oh, yeah. It all depends on the week, but it just shows how good these three are doing. or you can even say 4 in certain aspects. But like, my gosh, like these guys are being so like this is one of the tightest MVP races I've
we
seen.
haven't even mentioned a guy like Kawhi Leonard. I mean,
Like that's how tight this race is. Like usually it's like, oh, that's a foregone conclusion by this point, but we really don't know who can take MVP. To be
completely honest, we haven't even talked about any of the Warriors players, and I think 2 of them always have a good argument to being the MVP, right? So
yeah, but I have to put them on the bottom of my list if I had to put them on the list because of how well like Paul George is doing, how Giannis is doing, how Harden is doing, and even I would put Leonard above them.
But
too.
The crazy thing is that those 2 players on Golden State could arguably be the best players in basketball.
Oh, 100%. I'm not taking that away.
Like,
but it's a matter of like how you're doing in the season rather than.
Oh no, I'm not saying that either one should be the MVP. I'm simply saying that this race is so wide open that even maybe the 3 or 4 best players on the planet are not even being considered.
I
for the
see
MVP.
What you're saying. Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. But
give those 2 from Golden State, LeBron and Anthony Davis. Not either one of them are in the conversation, and either one of them could claim I am the best basketball player on the planet.
Yes, you can. They can absolutely say that.
It's crazy.
But the NBA just got a lot more interesting based off this MVP race alone. I mean, Giannis is becoming a man on a mission with the Bucks, and he's like carrying that. Well, would you say carrying that team to where they are now? Would you say that, or would you say just helping?
Giannis?
Yeah, or would you say helping that team in a tremendous way?
Yeah, I mean he's definitely carrying the team. I mean, even last night he had 29, 17, and 8.
Yeah, I hate to use the word carrying because it doesn't give the other players enough credit because it is 5 guys on the court. But I understand he is a huge.
Most people can't even name more than 1 or 2 other players on the Bucks. To be honest with you.
Granted, so that makes sense. And then also Paul George revitalizing his career right now. Like he was kind of looked at, he was going on a downhill slump almost, and now he's playing the best he's ever played in his career. And Harden has his 30-point streak at 30 games now. Granted, it was 31 points this recent game, which was close, but he got it still.
It's crazy that Paul George, it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be a Laker, and then he pretty much shunned them and stayed in OKC, which shocked a lot of people, including myself.
I think it shocked everybody.
And then he's elevated his game. Like he's gotten even better, which I think that's even more shocking because he was already a great player, one of the top 10, 12 players in the NBA, but he's gotten even better in that time where a lot of people didn't expect that, Yeah,
remember his injury at the USA scrimmage game he had? Like, everyone thought, like, he was on the last legs of his career after that injury, and rightfully so. It was a pretty brutal injury, all things considered. But, man, he has come back in a way that I don't think anyone expected, not even, like, his own family would expect, Like, it's just this incredible comeback of a career, and you can easily say right now Paul George is playing the best basketball in the NBA over everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's, this month, like I mentioned, 39 points per game, 47, 12, and 10 against a playoff team in the Portland Trailblazers last night. A big win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. When you look at the playoff standings, I mean, they still sit just 1 game behind Denver for the number 2 spot. They're only 3.5 behind the Warriors. And not only that, but the gap now between 3rd and 4th, between them and Portland, who they just beat, is now 4 games. So they're comfortably in the playoffs. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's easily a playoff team. The West is so tight that if you can get any separation, it'll help you at the end of the season and possibly give you the home court advantage that you need against other very strong basketball teams like Portland, like Houston, like Utah. Maybe the Lakers, maybe Sacramento, maybe the Spurs. All those teams are formidable, so you can get some rest at the end of the year plus home court. It'll help you out and possibly be the team to give the Warriors a thrilling 7-game series. I don't know.
Yeah, and with George's, and just going back to Paul George, with his contract going up until 2022, him and Russell Westbrook could make a very formidable duo and add more guys to that lineup in the years to come if George keeps playing like this. Like, I don't see him slowing down, do you?
No, not for the next year or two, for sure. I would be more worried about Westbrook, if I'm being honest, just because of the violent way he plays. Like, he doesn't shy away from contact, and
you mean injury wise?
Yeah, you just worry at some point, like, maybe he'll drive to the lane too hard one time. One time too many.
One mistake, yeah, absolutely. But that could be for any player,
Could be for anybody. But you know how he is. Like,
I understand.
As he's turning 30 years old this year, like, we'll see what happens. Russell Westbrook is an interesting player to project his longevity because he's not the greatest shooter. So if he starts to decline in any sort of athleticism, it might really affect his overall production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it all comes down to just like maybe he knows this and he wants to adapt his game for the next coming years. Who knows? But that's up to him. But I think he's going to keep playing this way until he retires, to be honest. I don't think he's going to slow down. Mm-hmm. He's just that kind of a player. I don't think he's going to admit to himself that, So overall, I will say that the Thunder are looking extremely good with these two players on the tears they are on right now.
Mm-hmm. So, and then we look at last night. You mentioned it, James Harden, 30 games of at least 30 points now. 120-104, they beat Dallas. Very good win for the Rockets as they improved to 33-23.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about Portland losing, and now the Rockets have tied Portland for the 4th spot. They are behind on a tiebreaker, but they're right there. They might be able to push in the top 4. We just talked about home court advantage. Getting the number 4 seed is probably what the biggest difference in one seed in the NBA in the playoffs is the 5 to the 4 because you get the home series in the first round.
Oh, it's crucial
rather than playing on the road. So maybe Harden and Houston will be able to push in the top 4. They're getting healthier. Harden talked about it last night. He talked about getting Capella back after the break, which would be a major boost for them.
Mm-hmm. Right now, Portland and Houston are tied exactly with the same record, like you were talking about how close they are. But I don't see Portland holding on to that 4th spot. I see Houston just edging them by. But, don't forget about Utah and San Antonio. They're not far behind either.
I actually wouldn't be shocked if Portland started dropping a little bit in the standings.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I don't know that they're better. I don't think they're better than the teams that are ahead of them or behind them in the standings.
Well, the thing is, the Clippers are 9th right now. They dropped to 9, and Sacramento jumped to 8, and they're at 31 wins, and Portland's at 33 wins. So that can change it. Like, the whole Western Conference
basically
can change
from
in a week.
4 to 10 can change pretty quickly here.
On a dime, like in a day. It could change dramatically. Like, that's how close this all is compared to the Eastern Conference. So Portland may have the 4th seed, but you can see them dropping off in, I can even say, like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how close this is, and that's how crazy this NBA season is in the Western Conference. So you think, like, the only teams that I think are safe, quote-unquote, are obviously Golden State, Denver, and Oklahoma City. But the rest, it's anyone's game, really, between, like, I would say up to Los Angeles, the Lakers, I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's 10. That's from basically, like you said, 4 to 10. All those spots can change.
Yep.
That's incredible. Maybe that's why NBA is at an all-time high because of how closely contested the Western Conference really is.
Right.
Yeah. But again, and then you look at the Milwaukee Bucks and Toronto Raptors who are etching for that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're both at the most wins with 42. And now it's just, is it because they're in a weaker conference they have the most wins, or do you think it's because?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, they're playing Eastern Conference teams every night, most of the nights.
Like, but in the Western, if they're okay, hypothetically, if one of them was in the Western Conference, how many wins would you give them?
They'd probably be between 3rd and 4th right now, probably 4th. I'd say like between 35 and 38 wins.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. But and then
it's just easier to play. I mean, it's not that they're not great teams in their own right, but I don't know if Toronto's better than Denver or OKC. I don't know if Milwaukee's better than Denver or OKC. I'd put them more in the Portland-Houston range.
Mm-hmm. And, well, speaking of Toronto, Kawhi banked in a game-winning shot the other day for the win to beat the Nets in a truly remarkable play, honestly. But when you bank a shot, do you think it was planned? Or do you think I looked like he was aiming for the corner of the square in the glass. So I don't know. Like some people were like, "Oh, he just overshot and got lucky." I'm like, I'm pretty sure he was aiming for the glass that entire time. That looked like a pretty routine.
Well, Toronto coach Nick Nurse asked Kawhi if he called bank, and Kawhi said he called game.
Nice. And that's probably the best way to say that. But regardless, whether it hit the
Ball
glass or
went
not,
in,
it
right?
went in. Yeah, ball went in. And you beat the
That's all
Nets.
they're going to care about.
And again, this is against a Nets team that's a playoff team at the
Yep.
moment. So it's not
Fully
like
expect them to make
it's
playoffs.
not like just the regular Nets that we're used to back in the bottom of the barrel.
This ain't the New Jersey Keith Van Horn Nets.
Oh, let's not bring that up.
Kerry Kittle's Jason Kidd.
Oh, don't. It's depressing.
What's wrong with that? They almost won a championship.
Yeah. Okay. They got destroyed every time they made it to the finals. The back-to-back season they went to the finals, they got killed.
Well, I mean, they got there. They almost won.
Again, Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they almost won. I mean, they got there. So that was not a bad era in New Jersey Nets basketball. Obviously, they moved to Brooklyn in that time, but not a bad history, I guess, marker for that franchise, considering the ups and the downs that they've had a lot of in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. True.
They
You
had
make a
Sean
good point.
Bradley on their team. I remember that back in the day.
Wow, that's going way back.
Do you remember how big that dude was?
God, was he like? He was a monster. He was a tree, basically, wasn't he?
Yeah, 7'6".
7. Jesus Christ! Remember, it's like climbing a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, like with height, you take away a lot of other things like athletic ability, which is a big issue.
You know, for being 7'6", he was not the most unathletic person. But yeah, you're right. You really can't be LeBron and be that big. But
if you could, you'd be the greatest player of all time.
But I mean, I got to give him credit. Like he had a pretty long career for being that big. That's a tough.
Couldn't he
tough
dunk
size.
the ball without jumping?
Maybe I don't know.
I remember seeing Yao Ming do that one time during a game.
He played 12 years in the NBA for the Sixers, for the Nets, and
He's
for the
still alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because people who are that height don't have really long lifespans, unfortunately, because like blood circulation, all that stuff. So good thing he's still
Yeah,
going.
he's a very abnormal human.
Yeah, 7'6". Yeah, that's abnormal. How old is he?
46 years old.
That's actually pretty good. Usually that's just because that like the tallest man in the world, like it was 8 whatever he was, 8'6", 8'7", or whatever he was. He died in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like what do you mean? Like abnormal blood circulation. Your blood can't go that far, and it can't go that quickly. So it's good that he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't expect people that tall to.
He was in Space Jam too. Remember that?
Oh my God, that's right. I forgot about that.
Muggsy Bogues, Larry Johnson, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, I remember him next to. Oh man, him next to Bogues. He is such an abnormal height difference. It's like a child and a grown up. It's insane.
He was also in an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. Believe it or not.
Was he? Wait, with Chuck Norris?
Yes.
Yeah, but in Space Jam,
He had a cameo.
wasn't it the blue alien that took over him because he was the tallest one and kind of dumb?
So. Mm-hmm.
That's. Are they making the Space Jam 2? Is that actually happening, or was that just rumors?
I think it's happening.
God, I hope like it relates to the first one. Don't make it too modernized.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. Space Jam was good the way it was, so keep it original.
Yeah.
And if people not our age, if you're younger than us in your teens haven't seen Space Jam, if you're a fan of sports, you're gonna watch Space Jam.
Definitely.
You will love that movie. Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Pacers won 99-90 last night against Hornets, so they keep going up.
That extends their winning streak, if I'm not mistaken.
Also, the Clippers lost to the Timberwolves, so as of right now, the Clippers are not in the playoffs.
Yeah, they dropped to 9.
Yeah, if it were to start today, they'd be 9th and out, and Sacramento, of all teams, would be your 8th seed. Playing the Warriors. You want to know something crazy about the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings?
Tell me.
In the 33 years that Sacramento has been a team in Sacramento, only one game have they played against each other where both teams are over 500. One game,
Wait.
out of like 180.
They've been around for years, though.
33 years. They've played 4 times a year every single year.
That is absurd.
At least 4 times a year. They have one game, and that was this year. Earlier this year was the first time. Now, there is a caveat to this. They didn't count any games that were played within the first 10 games of the season.
Okay, that makes sense.
But yes.
So it's got to be like midway point through the season, roughly.
Well, no, just the first 10. Just the first 10.
Oh, wow. So 11 to 82.
Yes.
That's actually
and it
impressive.
Was this year. And the next time they play this year, which is here in a week or two,
will be the second
the second time. Isn't that absolutely insane?
Like, the Kings can't be in losing. Like, there's 30 and 20. Yeah, they can't.
They've never had a big game against the two teams, really, in their history, which is crazy because they are proximity rivals.
If the season ended now, they'd be playing each other in the playoffs, which I'm assuming Golden State would win, I would say, in 5.
Which would probably be – I was thinking about this. Would Golden State want that because of how close it is? But then again, like, the Kings can at least run, and maybe they'll get swept. But I don't know. Maybe it would be an easier.
Honestly, if the Kings make the playoffs, I don't care if they don't even win a game. I think that's an accomplishment.
Oh, I know. But do you think Golden State would rather play a team like San Antonio, who like they know they're just going to run over and it's going to be a sweep, and they don't have to expend a lot of energy? At least against Sacramento, they'd have to run up and down the floor. And
you mean speed wise?
Yeah, like it would be a tougher first-round series. I mean, I'm not saying the Warriors can't handle it, but I mean, ideally speaking, right? Like ideally,
fatigue-wise, I see what you're saying, but I think they'll be fine nonetheless.
Yeah, they're going to probably sweep whoever they
I think
play.
it'll be over by like the third quarter, and they'll rest. They won't play. A lot of guys won't play in the fourth quarter type.
And if they did play Sacramento, they wouldn't have to fly. I mean, they could literally bust to the game, and
that probably is a huge advantage too, going later in the like playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
Just watch. The Kings are going to beat them in 4, and we're all just going to be total shock.
That would be one of the most shocking things ever to happen in sports, for sure. At least in the NBA, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen, but if it does, I will.
So, like when
Dikembe
Mutombo's Nuggets team beat the Sonics,
that wasn't even as impressive.
Yeah, I mean that was a big deal. But
Sonics were great back then, no doubt about it.
But like the Warriors are historically great. Like the Warriors are considered the greatest team of all time, like ever assembled, the greatest starting 5 ever assembled.
So that's why if they actually won.
Yeah, the Warriors getting upset by an 8th seed would be the biggest thing to ever happen in basketball.
I think I would I don't know how I would react.
Do you think the rest of the NBA would give the Kings like an award, like a trophy, like thank you, like you gave everybody else a chance,
Maybe, but I think also they'd be like, how? What did you pay the refs or something like that? Mm-hmm. Ironically, because they got screwed over in 2002.
Pay the refs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How we've come full circle.
Interesting how history could turn out
the opposite way.
Yeah,
we're just assuming they're going to pay off the refs if they can make the playoffs. That was just what we're assuming.
Tim Donaghy. Mm-hmm.
You know what? Yeah, I'll tell you that after the break.
We got to go to a break.
Yeah, when we come back, we'll talk about
NFL.
We have an interesting signing to Cleveland, and we'll see how that affects the whole entire league. As we'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Just finished our NBA talk. Now we're moving on to the NFL as Kareem Hunt, former Kansas City Chief, has now been signed to a new team. And that new team is the Cleveland Browns. He's staying in the AFC. It's unknown what his contract is, I'm assuming. I haven't heard anything about his...
it's a 1 year, $1 million deal.
Is it actually?
Yep.
Did that come out recently? I didn't hear about that part. But it's one of those things in where we expected him to sign with the team, but I didn't know the Browns were even going for him because I thought they have Nick Chubb.
It's very interesting. So we have learned that the general manager for the Browns actually knows Kareem Hunt really well. So that kind of makes sense. But, yeah, in terms of what they have and what they, invested in Nick Chubb, which was a high second-round pick, it is interesting that they would sign Kareem Hunt. But when you look at the contract, a year, $1 million, I mean...
That's cheap.
Who wouldn't sign him for that, right? Obviously
I'm
there's
very
morality
surprised.
concerns here. But
that's why he's doing it to prove his worth for next season's free agency. That's what this is about.
This is a big deal just because the Browns now have a backfield of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And regardless of how you feel about Kareem Hunt and if he should be allowed to play and all that stuff, you cannot deny that is probably the best 1-2 combo that, honestly, I don't even know if there's a better 1-2 combo that I've seen in a long time. I know people will say, what about Ingram and Kamara? I think these two guys are more talented overall, to be quite honest with you. And they're young. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But one thing I have an issue with, not him signing. I get that he's trying to make amends and he's doing the 1 year, $1 million thing. That doesn't bother me. The one thing is, if I'm Nick Chubb, I'm a little angry.
Mm-hmm. Because
you have the right to be the number one guy. You're the one that should be getting the 25 to 30 carries. Now you have to split carries to somebody. And that puts we'll talk about this in the fantasy football podcast today. That will affect his fantasy football stock pretty huge. But regardless, it's going to affect his playing time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only is it a 1 year deal, but the Browns actually do hold him as a restricted free agent after this year. So technically they could match any offer that he gets outside of the Browns. So smart move for the Browns, in my opinion. I know that people are criticizing them today because Kareem Hunt and his incident, and I know that he'll be suspended by the NFL. We're not sure how many games he will be.
I'm going to assume 3 or 4.
So that's another thing that we need to consider when talking about Nick Chubb and his playing time is, if I'm being completely honest, I think Kareem Hunt's going to be suspended for 8 games.
8?
I really do. I really do.
I think 3 or 4. But maybe in the middle. Maybe we'll even it out and go
Let's
5,
just put
6.
it this way. There's a videotape of him kicking a woman, and that is whatever you believe, whatever you think, the optics of the situation are always bad and will always make a difference. So if it's 3 or 4, man, the NFL is going to get crushed. Like the NFL, and I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be. This isn't me sitting on a pedestal saying he should get this many games, he shouldn't get this many games. I'm simply saying if the NFL only suspends Kareem Hunt for 3 or 4 games and it's the same as a PED violation, they will get crushed by the media. They will absolutely get destroyed.
Yeah, I'm just going based off I think it's just the footage evidence and the other evidence.
Elliott got 6 games. Ezekiel Elliott got 6 games, and I don't even think he really.
It seemed like that
was
one.
There even a video on him?
No, there wasn't. And it seemed like to me, and that the charges were dropped as well. And it seemed to me that one seemed like a vendetta against Jerry Jones almost. Like that's what everyone was talking about. Like, was this for Jerry Jones or is this against Ezekiel Elliott by Roger Goodell? We don't really know what the situation was. It all seemed kind of suspicious to me, to be honest with you. But yeah, I can see Kareem Hunt getting 8 games. I can see him getting more than that, honestly. It all depends on how the NFL reviews the footage and how they want to go by this. But regardless, he's going to be a Cleveland Brown for 1 year.
So in 2017, Kareem Hunt led the NFL in rushing with 1,327 yards, 8 touchdowns. He also had 53 catches for 455 and 3 touchdowns. Last season, he had 824 yards and 7 touchdowns in 11 games and had 7 receiving touchdowns before he was released. So, look, you got 2 guys that could run for 1,400 yards on your team. Pretty good.
Honestly, you could have made the argument that Kareem Hunt could have gotten close to 2,000 yards.
Yeah. So I don't know what necessarily his motivation is for signing with the Browns. Maybe he didn't think he had too many options out there. I have no idea.
It sounded like Chicago was also in the running, but maybe I don't know. But maybe it's to prove what his net worth will be or his worth will be when it comes to next year's free agency. I'm assuming this is gonna be like his I can still play. I can still be a great player for your team. He's going to be a commodity going next.
Oh, yeah, he'll be a huge commodity in the next offseason. I mean, even as a restricted free agent, some team will probably – like, if he does well next year –
he will get offers because it's only $1 million.
I mean, I'll be honest, man. I think that if he does well next year and he serves his suspension and all that, I could see him getting a Todd Gurley type deal after that, to be completely honest with you.
Like a
because
4 or 5 year deal?
Yeah, he's 23.
Yeah, he's extremely young. But again, it's going to be his character that's going to be the biggest
If he
question.
stays out of trouble, right? Because for all intents and purposes, that was the first time that we've heard about Kareem Hunt.
And the problem with most of it is for teams, I feel like, is he lied to his own to the owners and all the things about what actually happened. That's why he.
And
got
then after
cut.
the incident, we did hear like there was another incident where it was like him arguing with some guy, I think like at a club or something like that.
I think there was some homosexual slurs thrown.
Yeah, I don't know anything about all that, but I know that there was grumblings that he had other incidents that didn't turn out to be big deals, but were, I guess, teetering on the edge of being a big deal. So Kareem Hunt, we know that he's been going through counseling. Also, John Dorsey, GM of the Browns, said that they do have a zero tolerance policy with the Kareem Hunt. So if he messes up, expect him to be done.
Yeah. So I don't think he can afford to do that. I think he's on his last leg at the moment when it comes to that kind of situation. But regardless, Kareem Hunt is going to be a Cleveland Brown. We don't know for how many games because of the suspension. So we'll see how he does in Cleveland for the next season. But it looks like Nick Chubb is still going to be the guy there. I don't think that's any question. I think he's still going to be the number one running back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Kareem Hunt's going to share some snaps, but I think Nick Chubb should be getting the majority.
Well, what we also have to remember is that when Kareem Hunt's suspended, let's just say it's 8 games.
Okay.
Like, for sake of argument, he can't practice in that time. So when he gets reintroduced to the team, it's going to be basically preseason for him, whereas everybody's in middle of the season mode, right? So,
yeah. And he's not the only one that's kind of had news on the block, because Demaryius Thomas, remember he got traded to the Houston Texans before the trade deadline, has been cut by or is planned to be cut by the Houston Texans.
That makes sense.
He tore his Achilles in Week 16. So let me ask you, is this the end of Demaryius Thomas's career, or do you think he'll get signed by another team before the next season?
When off the top of my head, I would say he gets. I don't know about signed by another team before the beginning of next season. If he tore his Achilles, right?
Correct.
Yeah, if he tore his Achilles, he's probably not going to get signed. I mean, maybe down the road, but he tore it late in the season. He tore it in December,
Week 16.
right? Yeah, so
second to last week of the entire season.
Yeah, that's usually like a 9 to 10 month injury return at least. Like sometimes it takes a full year to recover from that. I mean, look at DeMarcus Cousins in the NBA. Like, obviously they were being cautious with him, but still, like,
they didn't need to rush him, and he doesn't need to be rushed either, all things considered.
Yeah.
But this is definitely he was supposed to be their piece to the playoff puzzle, but he couldn't even get that opportunity based off the injury.
The thing is for him is that, so you remember they signed him to replace Will Fuller because Will Fuller got hurt, and Will Fuller is an impressive young player.
He's very underrated, in my opinion.
But yeah, if you know why they're going to cut him.
Because Fuller's coming back?
If Demaryius Thomas is kept on the Texans, they owe him $14 million, and they owe him $0 if they cut him. So that's an easy decision.
Who wrote that contract?
Well, it was the end of a 5-year, $70 million contract. Last year he only made $4.5 million, but there's a big end. So yeah, a big last year on the contract.
So is he getting kind of screwed out of a lot of money at this moment?
He lost $14 million. I mean, he's going to get cut. I mean, I know they say expected or whatever. I mean, the Texans are not keeping a $14 million contract on a 31-year-old past his prime wide receiver coming off an Achilles injury. It just isn't feasibly possible.
Yeah, you're right. And he still has that Super Bowl run with the Denver Broncos at Super Bowl 50. He still has all that stuff going.
He got 43 guaranteed out of that deal, though, of the 70 million.
So he's still way up there in money.
Yeah.
So he should be fine. But nonetheless, when you're looking at it overall, he's going to be I think he's going to be looked at as more of a veteran, a wide receiver that helps the younger guys on a team, if anything, if he gets signed.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at other free agents, wide receiver-wise, we got like Golden Tate, Robbie Anderson, Des Bryant, and Kelvin Benjamin. Des
Bryant tore his Achilles too, so that's another tough one. He might be
done. Yeah, I just have to bring him up because of the fact he's still a free agent. Like, he's 30 years old. But who do you think between Des Bryant and Demaryius Thomas, do you see one getting signed, or do you think it's going to be a while before we see them on the field again? I'm saying before the season begins, or do you think it's going to be like midway through season type signing?
Well, they both were hurt near the end of the year, but Des was a couple weeks earlier. I think Des will get signed before Demaryius Thomas.
Okay. Just depends on where. I'm not sure where they're. I'm thinking they're both going to get signed, but I just don't know where they will end up.
They'll definitely get tryouts. Like, they'll definitely get brought in to work out.
Absolutely, but the question is where. Like, I can't think of any other teams that really could use an old wide receiver for young. Like, I'm assuming they're being used as a veteran, like not a role model, but like a kind of like a mentor to younger wide receivers. I'm assuming help them out in some ways. I mean, that's my only thought of what they could do. But I could be wrong. We'll see how everything ends up.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to add?
We should go to a break. When we come back, talk about Kyler Murray.
Ooh, we'll talk about Kyler Murray and even a little bit about the NHL. We'll talk right about it when we come back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Finishing up our day with some Kyler Murray and NHL stuff. Do you want to go Kyler Murray first, or do you want to go NHL first? Up to you.
Kyler Murray committing to football, I think, is an interesting story, and it leads to conspiracy theorists out there.
Of course it does. But what seems to be also in the news about that is the A's are still confident in they will be able to keep Kyler Murray or get him on the team somehow or some way. So regardless, even though like he says he's not going to pursue baseball, it sounds like the A's are not giving up on that. And so with that conspiracy theory, it sounds like he's going to be upping his draft stock when it comes to the NFL, hence why he said that. That's what people are assuming.
Yeah, so he's committing to football, he says. So that means I'm assuming he's not going to training camp for baseball.
It
That would mean that,
sounds well. He says he's 100% committed to football, so that's what it sounds like. But he could still appear later on. Like it's not. I'm not gonna say it's totally out the window yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's.
Well, I mean, if he says he's committing to football, that would mean that he wouldn't go to spring training.
Yeah, right? I know, but I'm not gonna rule out he's not gonna be there. And like, there's no guarantee he's not gonna go. Like it sounds like he's not going to go for right now.
Why he would say that he would commit to football if he was still planning on going to spring training and just seeing what happens. That would be very shocking, right?
Yeah.
He can do it. I'm just saying it would be like, okay, that makes no sense.
Yeah, we don't know what the real thought process is for this.
Like, I'm not going.
It sounds like it's a stock rise.
Like, I'm gonna marry you, but I'm gonna go on a date with this other girl before I do it. That's what that would say, right? Like, yeah, I'm committed to you, but like, I'm gonna check this out too.
I wouldn't put it like that.
Why not?
It just sounds like
if you say I'm committing my future to football, and then you go play baseball spring training to, like, isn't that the point of committing to football?
Yeah, but the A's are still saying like they're confident in that, like they can still persuade him going.
Oh yeah,
into
down
it.
the road.
Down the road. So it's. I'm not gonna say. In my opinion, I don't think it's fully closed door on baseball yet.
No, not forever. I'm saying like that means that he's not going to go to spring training.
For right now, it sounds like it to me that way. But he could report at any time during that spring training, so it's not like it's. Sure. It could still happen, is what I'm saying. It's not impossible, but to me, I got the assumption that he kind of wants his draft stock to continue to rise, if that makes sense.
All right. So you want to talk about NHL, huh?
Yes, because we have we got some new teams up in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference in the divisions. Most notably, a team that's been known for its ineptitude, you can say. The New York Islanders are in first in the Metropolitan Division ahead of the defending champion Washington Capitals with 72 points to their 69. They're 33-16 on the season. They are the most surprising. Them and the Calgary Flames are the most surprising outcomes in the NHL so far. They've both been playing extremely well. Sturdy defense, fast pace. And Calgary was in first, but the Sharks have moved up into first in the Pacific Division with 75 points to their 74. And the Sharks, who are up there in age with a lot of older talent like Joe Thornton, for example, who's moving up on the NHL assist list. But regardless, it looks like the Sharks are still going to fight for – it sounds like this is their last shot at a Stanley Cup, honestly, how they're playing because of how old their team is. But we don't know that for certain. But the Flames are a huge surprise, as well as the Islanders are a huge surprise, but who's still fighting that no one thought would actually fight when they first started. The Vegas Golden Knights are still in third. It sounds like it's almost a foregone conclusion for the Pacific that the three teams are going to be the Sharks, the Flames, and the Knights that are going into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And with those three teams, I don't think anyone expected the Flames to be up there. And for the Golden Knights, they're coming off a Stanley Cup appearance. And this is one of those things in where, like, this team was supposed to be at the bottom of the gutter for years before rebuilding. This is a rebuilding team, supposedly, when they first started. But the Vegas Golden Knights have still been on this huge run, huge momentum since last season. What are your thoughts on the Vegas Golden Knights from starting last season with a brand new team, brand new franchise, to being Stanley Cup favorites?
I think that it probably pisses off a lot of people, fans of teams that have watched hockey for a long time.
Like
and
the
then
St. Louis Blues or
this expansion team comes in and kills it right away.
Well, they're not the first team to actually do that. The first team to actually do that was the St. Louis Blues, the first expansion team to make it to the Stanley Cup final in their first season. But they were in a division and conference full of expansion teams, so it wasn't like there was any major favorites in that conference they were in. So it's not like a big shocker that they made it or a first team made it like that. But for this time, this day and age, where everyone has their team set up, everyone knows who they are and how good they can be, for the Vegas Golden Knights to just grab expansion picks that teams didn't want and make into a steady powerhouse is something to behold, definitely, and how good this Vegas Golden Knights team is. Granted, they're third in the Pacific Division right now with 66 points, but still, they are in the playoffs at the moment. They are a contender.
And they damn near won a Stanley Cup championship.
It was, they weren't too far off against the Washington Capitals, who are not even first in their own right. The Islanders are ahead of the champions right now, and the Capitals usually is owning the Metropolitan Division. They're President's Trophy winners. They've usually had the best record in the NHL. That's what President's Trophy winner is, for those that don't know. And it's either them or the Penguins, and the Penguins are right now on the outside looking in. Division place-wise, they might be able to sneak into a wild card spot, but right now, the New York Islanders are ahead in first place, and this team looked like they were dead in the water. It looked like this franchise was almost going to disintegrate and go somewhere else, honestly, a couple of years back. But like they were not going to play in Long Island anymore. They're playing in Brooklyn now. There's a whole thing with stadium issues. They didn't have a home for a while. And to have them be in first, it's like a Cinderella. Like we have another Cinderella story, not just with the Golden Knights. Now we have one with the New York Islanders.
Don't the owners have a young rookie who's like tearing it up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not taking anything away from the talent they have. They have a bunch of young talent. That's why they're being so how do you say it? They're being so excellent lately. Mm-hmm. And so with that kind of talent, and a lot of their guys are early 20s, late 20s. Like they don't really have they have a young team, a young steady team. A lot of 21 and 22-year-olds, and that's what makes this team so just great
fun to
right
watch,
now. Yeah, exactly. Fast pace, youth and speed. I mean, youth and speed is what's winning games right now for them, and they're taking total advantage of it without question. And so, being first in the Metropolitan ahead of teams like the Capitals and the Penguins is something to behold.
Yeah, definitely. So, hockey season's coming to obviously its climax, where the playoffs. We all know the NHL playoffs provides a ton of excitement. You don't even have to be a huge hockey fan to just enjoy how wide open the playoffs are, because we know that in hockey, usually in like football and basketball, the top seeds usually advance. In hockey, it just seems like anybody has a legitimate chance to win. It just feels that way all the time.
Yeah. And like you said, their leading goal scorer is Anders Lee, who has 18 goals, 20 assists, 38 points on the season, which is pretty fantastic, all things considered. They have Matthew Barzal with 32 assists. Matthew Barzal actually is leading the team in points with 48 points. That's the young man you're thinking about when you think of a guy that's tearing it up. And it's just been a great season for the Islanders. They deserve to be where they are. If you've seen them play, you know what I'm talking about. And, again, if you're not even a fan of the hockey, watch the hockey playoffs. They're super exciting as always.
They're the one New York team that's blue and orange that isn't an embarrassment.
What are you saying?
The Knicks have 17 straight losses.
Right! I was kidding, by the way. But I knew what you're getting at. Yeah. That's
like a quarter
a franchise,
of the season.
That's a franchise record, by the way.
That's like almost a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
I mean,
so, hey, New York fans, at least you have the Islanders. I never thought I would say that before, but at least you have the Islanders doing extremely well. You have the Nets, too, granted.
Zion watches on.
Did you see the meme of Zion smiling at the 17 straight losses?
No.
Oh, I thought there's a gif of him just smiling at 17 straight losses. So
Knicks fans are just going to put their fingers in their ears and tune you out and say, next year we'll have Durant, Kyrie, and Zion, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but maybe so. But looking at this season, it looks to me like the Islanders could be a very tough team to face. They're playing Buffalo tomorrow, who is pretty good in their own right. Like they were not too far off in the standings themselves when it came to this season.
Battle of New York, right there.
Yeah, absolutely. But
how are the Rangers?
Let's not talk about that.
Bad, huh?
Well, I'll just tell you. They're 24-23. Like, their win-loss record is okay, but they have 56 points. They're in 7th place in the Metropolitan Division. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Well, not the worst team in the league, worst in their division. They're second to worst in the division.
So it's a tough division, it sounds like.
Yeah. But
winning
the Rangers,
record, but they're pretty low.
Yeah, the Rangers have always been a struggling franchise for a couple of years now. And for the Sabres, like I said, they had a pretty good start to the season. They were in the top 3 at one point. Now they're down to number 5 at 61 points. But the thing is, everyone is doing well. Like, even the Winnipeg Jets are in first in their own division, ahead of the Predators, who won President's Trophy last year with the most points in the league. But I think we already have a winner of the President's Trophy, because the Tampa Bay Lightning, comparative, I'll just tell you this. The second team with the most points looks to be the San Jose Sharks with 75 points. Tampa Bay Lightning have 86.
Mm-hmm.
That just shows you how dominant Tampa Bay is. And like I showed you like all the underdog stories of the Islanders in Vegas and whatnot, what have you, and the Calgary Flame who are up still fighting for a playoff spot, which seems like the Pacific is almost cut and dry at this moment. Tampa Bay just seems to be like unstoppable. 41-11 record. This team looks just unreal. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things in where you can't believe how truly good they are. And it's almost funny, like how good they are. You know, it's like, remember the Patriots when they're like destroying people when they were like that 16-0 season? Mm. It's kind of like that. Like it's almost unfair.
Mississippi State defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons, he's projected to be a first-round pick. In fact, he has been, I guess, projected in mock drafts to be picked all the way as high as by Jacksonville as the number 7 overall pick. That's actually Todd McShay's latest mock draft. He suffered a torn ACL, it appears, training for the combine. So that is a devastating injury for him and will obviously affect his draft stock. Now he'll probably fall to maybe 3rd round or so.
Mm-hmm. And just back to the Lightning, just so you know how good they are. They have 3 players on their team with 24 goals or more. They have 2 players, Point and Stamkos, I almost couldn't pronounce that, both have 29 and 32 goals together. One of their players has 84 points alone, Khrushchev, with 24 goals and 60 assists, which is unheard of. And this team is they're front heavy, they're back, they have good second and third lines, great goalies, and it's unreal. Like, their goalie has 22 wins and 7 losses, and their backup goalie has 18 wins and 4 losses himself. Like, this is unreal, and their starting goalie has 4 shutouts this season. This team is looking like no one can stop them when it comes to playoff time, but anything could happen in the playoffs. We've seen the President's Trophy winners lose in the first round before, but we'll see how all that goes down. But going back to what you said about the draft prospect being injured, that hurts his draft stock entirely. But I think he'll still be drafted, but just not where he is projected, obviously. I think they're still going to give him opportunities and such. But bottom line is, I actually saw some draft. We were talking about Greedy Williams and how he was a top 5 pick. I saw a draft. What's the word? I saw a mock draft of him going number 15.
Could be.
And I thought that was incredibly low for him based off how good he has been and how...
There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking in those mock drafts until the end of April when the draft happens. We've got 2.5 months away. We've got a combine coming up in a week.
And we also have draft trades.
Draft trades.
Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen?
What if all 4 first-round potential quarterbacks improve their stock? What if, I don't know, like Greedy Williams, for example, some people actually think he might not be the number 1 cornerback taken. He probably will be, but there are mocks that have him maybe the 2nd cornerback. And if we're being honest, it's a defensive lineman draft. I think 4 or 5 would be picked in the first round.
This is a defensive draft in general to me, and that's just how great this draft is, in my opinion, of how intense it's going to be because of the fact, like, there's so much talent defensively in this draft. Like, I know there's some great offensive players that speak for themselves, but right now, defense is heavy, and teams need defense more than ever now. Just look at the Chiefs and how bad if they had a better defense, they might be they could have won the Super Bowl in theory. So honestly, defense is a huge add in this draft for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, I think that's our show for today.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Join us tomorrow.
Yes. Hopefully we'll have more stuff to talk about.
Oh, we will.
I meant based off like draft and stuff like that. Hopefully new news comes in because just our luck from what we've been doing the last couple of days this show, every time we're like finishing up the show and like done, something happens. Mm-hmm. That happened like multiple times in the last 3 shows. So hopefully hopefully we get a break and something happens later tonight, not 20 minutes afterwards. But as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff. That's Mark Souza. We'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.